Chapter 1. Midnight shift. The rain hammered against the Walmart Supercenter's vast glass doors as Lisa, a newly hired overnight stalker, clocked in for her first midnight shift. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, reflecting off the slick tile floors. The sprawling aisles were eerily silent, the usual hum of shoppers replaced by the rhythmic patter of rain against the roof. Lisa had always heard rumors about the strange happenings during the graveyard shift, but she shrugged them off as exaggerated gossip. Tonight, however, felt different, as though the shadows themselves were alive. Her first task was to restock the shelves in the toy aisle. As she unloaded a box of dolls, one of them slipped from her hand and landed face up on the floor. Its eyes opened and closed with a faint click, but the sound that followed wasn't mechanical. It was a whisper, soft yet unmistakable. "Help me," the doll seemed to say. Lisa froze, her heart pounding. She glanced around, expecting to see one of her co-workers playing a prank, but the aisle was empty. Chapter 2. Shadows in Aisle 5. Determined not to let a children's toy spook her, Lisa brushed off the incident and moved on to Aisle 5, where cleaning supplies were stored. The rain's relentless drumming against the roof seemed to grow louder, drowning out her thoughts. As she arranged bottles of bleach and detergent, she felt the air grow colder. A shadow moved at the edge of her vision. She spun around, expecting to see someone. Perhaps Tom, the janitor, who always seemed to lurk nearby. But the aisle was empty. She stared at the gleaming floor tiles, which reflected the shelves in eerie symmetry. For a split second, she thought she saw a pair of feet standing behind her in the reflection. When she turned again, there was no one there. Chapter 3. The intercom message. As Lisa's nerves began to fray, the store's intercom crackled to life. "Attention shoppers," a distorted voice announced. "Please make your way to the nearest exit." Lisa frowned. The store was closed to customers during the midnight hours. She grabbed her radio to contact her supervisor, Miguel. "Miguel, did you hear that announcement?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What announcement?" Miguel's reply came after a long pause. "I'm in the break room. The intercom isn't even on." Lisa's blood ran cold. Before she could respond, the intercom crackled again. And this time the voice whispered, "Get out while you still can." Chapter 4. The Lost Customer. Lisa decided to find Miguel, hoping his presence would calm her nerves. As she passed the electronics section, she noticed a woman standing near the TVs. The woman's drenched hair clung to her face, and her clothes dripped water onto the floor. "Mom, the store's closed," Lisa called out. The woman turned slowly, her face obscured by shadows despite the bright overhead lights. Without a word, she walked away, leaving wet footprints that vanished after a few steps. Lisa's throat tightened. She hurried to the break room, praying she'd find Miguel and some answers. Chapter 5. The Break Room Discovery. When Lisa pushed open the door to the break room, she was greeted by the smell of burnt coffee and the faint hum of the vending machine. Miguel wasn't there. Instead, his walkie-talkie lay abandoned on the table, its static-filled speaker hissing intermittently. "Miguel," Lisa called, but only silence answered. Chapter 6. The Rain's Warning. Lisa stumbled out of the break room, her mind racing. She needed to find someone, anyone, to confirm she wasn't losing her grip on reality. The rain outside grew fiercer, the sound now akin to a deafening roar. As she walked past the front doors, she noticed a message scrawled across the glass in what looked like condensation. "Leave now." Her breath hitched She pressed her hand to the glass, but it was dry. The message began to fade, as though it had never been there. The sound of a shopping cart rolling behind her made her spin around, but no one was there. Only the faint squeak of wheels echoed down the empty aisles. Chapter 7. The Missing Co-Workers. The store's eerie silence was shattered by the distant sound of a crash. Lisa ran toward the noise, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. She found an overturned shelf in the pet supplies aisle, bags of dog food and litter scattered everywhere. But what caught her attention was the trail of muddy footprints leading away from the mess. "Tom? Miguel?" she called out, her voice trembling. Following the footprints, she noticed they seemed to grow larger and more irregular, as though whatever had made them wasn't entirely human. The trail led to the employee-only section, where the door was ajar. Beyond it lay only darkness. Chapter 8. Into the dark. Lisa hesitated before stepping through the door. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, the flickering bulbs casting unsettling shadows. She gripped her flashlight tightly, its beam cutting through the gloom. The muddy footprints led to the stockroom, where rows of towering shelves loomed like silent sentinels. As she entered, the flashlight flickered, and the air grew heavy. She felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. A sudden loud bang echoed through the stockroom, and her flashlight went out. In the pitch black, she heard breathing, slow, deliberate, and far too close. Chapter 9. The Unseen Stalker. Lisa's pulse raced as she fumbled to turn her flashlight back on. The sound of breathing grew louder, interspersed with faint, wet footsteps circling her. Her hands shook as she finally managed to get the flashlight working. Its beam revealed nothing but rows of shelves and scattered boxes. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. The only reply was the echo of her own question. As she took a step forward, something brushed past her shoulder. She spun around, but there was nothing there. The breathing stopped, replaced by a low, menacing chuckle that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Chapter 10. The Lockdown. Lisa bolted from the stockroom, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She reached the main floor, only to find the store's front doors sealed shut. The electronic locks, which should have been disengaged, now blinked red. She grabbed her radio. "Is anyone out there? Miguel? Tom? Please answer me." Static crackled before a voice broke through. It wasn't Miguel or Tom. "You can't leave," the voice said, cold and emotionless. Lisa's grip tightened on the radio as the lights throughout the store began to flicker. The voice continued, "We've been waiting for you." Chapter 11. The Voice in the Rain. Lisa dropped the radio, its clattering lost in the cacophony of flickering lights and echoing static. The oppressive atmosphere thickened, and the rain outside seemed to match her rising panic. Amidst the chaos, the distorted voice returned, now clearer and more sinister. "We're all here, Lisa. Why don't you come find us?" Lisa pressed her hands against her ears, trying to block out the voice. The rain outside suddenly stopped, plunging the store into a suffocating silence. Her breathing became the only sound until she heard a faint tapping from the ceiling. Looking up, she saw dark, wet stains spreading, as if the rain had started to seep inside, but only in one spot. Beneath the spreading stain, she saw the faint outline of a figure.